To be clear, controlling decisions about our bodies is a basic human right. The government has no right to regulate what we can do with our bodies. Overturning Roe v. Wade is about control. It's about religious supremacy, and it's about harming women. It would fly in the face of decades of precedent and the overwhelming majority of public opinion if this decision is to hold. We know this decision will fall hardest on the most vulnerable in this country, women who have been abused, women who are the victims of incest.
The press insists this debate is about women's rights and limiting government power. Question that storyline for even a second, and you're treated like you just committed a thought crime. But politics has never been about the people delivering the loudest speeches. It's about who's quietly directing the scene. So take a breath, stay alert, and don't tune out early. This isn't a surface-level story. While Ilhan Omar is on the House floor painting a picture of Ted Cruz and Chuck Grassley as architects of some dystopian body policing task force, the real shift is happening out of sight. And no, it's not being driven by pragmatic centrists or party elders. The influence is coming from the squad, behind closed doors. Their gravity is unmistakable. The rest of the Democratic Party isn't leading, it's tiptoeing. Every move is calculated, every word chosen carefully, because one wrong step could spark backlash from a faction that's become impossible to ignore. Moderation isn't steering the conversation anymore. It's surviving it.
Led by the extreme left, by the squad, by AOC and Tlaib and Omar, whose statements might as well be issued on behalf of Hamas. They are accusing Israel of engaging in terrorism, defending your citizens from violent terrorist attacks is the right of Israel. And I will say for every Senate Democrat, they have an opportunity right now to decide where do they stand. Just a minute ago, I was speaking with a reporter who relayed that Chuck Schumer had told him, I don't want to answer any questions on Israel. Well, I bet he doesn't. I bet he doesn't because he's so scared of AOC primarying him from the left that he doesn't want to say anything to anger the anti-Israel extreme left in the Democratic Party. Now is a time for men and women with courage to step up and say, we stand with Israel. And by the way, now is a time when the Biden administration ought to step forward and say we're going to replenish the Iron Dome munitions that are saving thousands of lives by intercepting these terrorist rocket attacks. Instead of attacking and belittling and undermining the nation of Israel, President Biden ought to be standing with Israel and replenishing the Iron Dome munitions. And with that, using the powers of monopoly to censor political speech, I think that raises real antitrust issues.
So at this point, Senator, what are you going to do about it? Because that's exactly what's happening. Joining us now, social media superstars, President Trump's loyal supporters, Diamond and Silk, hosts of the Fox Nation show Diamond and Silk. Great to have you with us. And let's start with first Omar. She has defenders. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's disgusting anybody that can defend her tasteless and disrespectful words and quotes that she said. She is proven to be anti-American, anti-Jewish people. I don't even think she deserved to be in our Congress. And anybody that defends her, they don't deserve to be in our Congress either. Right. To refer to terrorists as some people, no, these were terrorists. They had animalistic behavior, terrorists, and they drove planes into our Twin Towers. So she needs to start calling things as they out or how they need to be called out. That's right. Instead of just beating around the bush. I don't think she represents America. I don't know who she represents, but it's not America.
Yeah, and her defenders, Tlaib and Ocasio-Cortez, saying that her critics, Omar's critics, are racist. This is, at this point, Nancy Pelosi seems to have lost control of these freshman lawmakers, and their language, their conduct is just unbecoming to say the very least, anyone representing the U.S. government as they do, not just the people of their home districts, but the American people. Can you imagine what this looks like being broadcast around the globe?
It doesn't look good. And it doesn't look good for America. You know, when you have a congresswoman sitting up there and referring to just some people did something in 9/11. No. These were terrorists. The same people that she tried to defend is who drove planes into our Twin Towers. So let's call it for what it is. I don't think that none of them deserve to be in Congress. They make us all look bad. And hey, I'm a black person. I'm not racist. Yeah, that's right. I'm not racist, but we have to call her out.
That's right. And a person's ideology should not dictate the outcome of a decision. And I think that's what Omar is allowing herself to do whenever she's making decisions. She's making it based off of her ideology and not the Constitution.
Right.
Well, or the Constitution or the national interest. I couldn't agree with you more. The radical Dems have really, they are... At one time, they were moving to the left. Now they are veering to the left. When William Barr, the Attorney General, said spying on the Trump campaign, you would have thought that he had used a 4-letter word rather than a 3-letter word.
Absolutely, because listen, it messes with the Democrats' narrative. You know, they are the one that masterminded, created it, perpetrated it, and so it's got to be called out.
That's right.
William Barr need to leave no table unturned, no stone unturned. Let's get down to the bottom of this.
That's right.
Let's begin with the scene the cameras want burned into your memory. Ilhan Omar steps up to the House floor and delivers a forceful defense of abortion rights, casting the possible rollback of Roe v. Wade as an assault rooted in religious dominance, government control, and, somehow, the very opposite of limited government. She paints a picture where figures like Ted Cruz and Chuck Grassley are itching to micromanage women's bodies. The press follows along without hesitation, because subtlety doesn't trend and complexity doesn't convert, but that's the distraction. While Omar accuses Republicans of authoritarian instincts, something far more telling is unfolding inside her own party. The Democratic Party today isn't operating through compromise, coalition building, or leadership consensus. It's operating through pressure. And the pressure is coming from its loudest, most uncompromising wing. Watch what happens when the topic shifts. When Senate Democrats are pressed on Israel, suddenly the confidence evaporates. Chuck Schumer, arguably the most powerful Democrat in the Senate, chooses avoidance over clarity. Not because the issue is murky, but because saying the wrong thing could invite a primary challenge from the left. That's not conjecture. That's the political reality. This is what fear-based governance looks like. The same voices preaching democracy and personal freedom are enforcing ideological obedience within their own ranks, especially on Israel. Supporting Israel's right to defend civilians from Hamas rocket attacks is treated as suspect. Funding Iron Dome, a purely defensive system that saves lives, becomes a liability. Meanwhile, labeling Israel a terrorist state is applauded as moral courage. The inversion is striking. Silence becomes safety. Agreement becomes survival. And dissent, at least from the center, disappears. That dynamic explains everything. It explains Biden's hesitation. It explains the evasive answers. And it explains why Omar speaks so boldly. She knows there will be no internal pushback. Party leadership won't challenge her, not because they agree, but because they're afraid to. So when you hear soaring rhetoric about freedom, human rights, and small government, understand the power structure behind it. The loudest faction dictates the boundaries, the moderates comply, and the media treats the whole arrangement as business as usual. In today's Democratic Party, bravery doesn't earn you protection. Obedience does. And that's the story no one's eager to spotlight.